I got some cheap and easy advice. Cheap, no, actually not cheap, free and easy advice for my Audiophiliac viewers. Now, I've talked about speaker placement many times before, and this is another speaker placement video. But here is something I want you to do. It's so easy, and it could yield significant dividends, and it will cost you absolutely zero. I want you to experiment with toe-in. In other words, the angle of your speakers relative to the wall and to you, right? So some people just automatically put their speakers parallel to the wall behind them, just flat, right? And that can work, and that can provide a very open sound stage and sound really good. But what it can be lacking in is focus, a center image focus, and then an image that has a good degree of focus throughout the image from left to right. So the thing is, how to approach this exercise is very simple. If your speakers are on stands or up against a wall or whatever, even in a bookshelf, if you have bookshelf speakers, just angle them so that they are firing, let's say, directly at you. So you sort of, you get the picture, right? You angle the speaker so that it's firing directly at you. So, now that may not turn out to be the best approach, but if you have your speakers right now parallel to the wall behind them and you aim them directly in, you will notice a couple of things right away. The first thing you'll notice is that they sound different, and they will be probably brighter and more detailed sounding. Maybe too much in that regard. It may be a little overwhelming. It might even sound harsh. So that's where you're going to angle them, let's say, go back, let's say halfway between parallel and angled directly at you. Now that may be in terms of, that may be the final place for them, because that may be the sweet spot. But just changing that angle can yield such significant differences. Now it's going to be different, the degree of change, depending on the speaker and its design. A lot of factors involved. If your speakers are highly directional, like Klipsch's tend to be, those differences will be very, very significant. If you have a speaker that's more even in its dispersion, those differences will be less. And some speakers will wind up sounding their absolute best when they are parallel against the wall. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't stay with parallel against the wall. This is just an experiment. If that's energized you, if you heard significant differences after you've experimented with a toe-in, the other thing I want you to try is just moving them closer or further apart. Start with closer. Closer together will probably yield a stronger center image, and further apart will yield a larger but probably less focused center and just a larger, more spacious sound. Again, it's worth your time to give it a shot. If you have smallish speakers and they're too low or too high, I want you to experiment with having them where the tweeters are more or less at your ear level height when you're seated to listen. Now that may take some doing, and that's optional. You don't have to try that because it may be a pain in the ass to actually try that. But if you can experiment with the vertical height of the speakers, that would be fantastic. Now, I have gone off the deep end before about moving your speakers further out into the room. And I think of all the placement tweaks and experiments to try, that is the one that I'm actually most passionate about. Because if your speakers are on the wall or just a few inches away from the wall, you're missing a lot of what those speakers can do. So again, just as an experiment, if you're going to put them on chairs or stools or something, if you don't have speaker stands, and just move them out into the room, again, more or less at the tweeters at ear height if possible. They don't have to be. I don't want that to be the reason you don't do it. I just want you to try moving them out a foot from the wall behind them. Hear the difference. See and hear what that yields for you. And if you like what you've heard, okay, take them 2 feet away from the wall behind them. And if that sounds even better, obviously keep trying them further and further out. Now, of course, that may not be possible to leave them in that position in your day-to-day life. I understand that. But you might, if they're small enough and easy enough to move, you might consider moving them out when you're listening and then pushing them back when you're not. But the main goal today is just to experiment with it. See what moving the speakers away from the wall gets you. I don't care what kind of speaker you have. If it's a box speaker, a panel speaker, electrostatic speaker, a magnepan, certainly with magnepan, horn speaker, whatever it is, move them out. Keep moving them out. See what happens. But also, try that toe-in experiment again. Especially if you're not toeing them in right now. That's you got to do it. You got to try that. So once you're into the toe-in thing, there's a few things to consider. You want to angle them in so the sound, the axis of those speakers is firing, let's say, a foot or two in front of you. Or, directly at you, as we discussed earlier, or also a few feet behind you where they're angled. In other words, less toe-in, so that the toe-in is the point where those two speakers meet, the axis, if you will, would be a few feet behind you. Again, it's all about experimentation, and I recommend you do it with a recording that has a solid center image, like a singer or something that's in the center. So you're paying attention to how focused and tonally how he or she sounds. Do they sound too lean, too thick, too diffuse, too focused, overly focused? Those are the things to listen for in these experiments. I think we've done it. My name is Steve Guttenberg, and this is the Audiophiliac Daily Show, coming to you 5 or 6 days a week right now. So I hope you can catch a lot of episodes. If you like what I'm doing here, as it's getting darker and darker, the sun just went out, please subscribe to this YouTube channel. Hit that button right down there. Check out the playlist. I have playlists of speaker reviews and amplifier reviews and DAC reviews and headphone reviews and music reviews and interviews with incredibly interesting people. I have been so lucky to interview. There's I think 70-something interviews that I've done. And so many of these people are just off the charts how great they are as interviews. So please check out those playlists. And hey, if you got this far, check out my Patreon page at patreon.com/audiophiliac. As always, thank you so much for watching. See you again real soon. Bye-bye.